Nice to meet you all. Thanks for a lovely day, everyone. I'm going to tell you a South African story, and it's a story about Abayoyo the Giant. Now, I realise today's been quite long. There's 3 of us left, though. So, before we get to the bedtime stories, I'm going to get you pumping again. So every time I say Abayoyo the Giant, I want you to go back to that childlike state and go, not a giant! Okay, so this story is about Abayoyo the Giant.
Not a giant!
Yes, a giant. It's not just about Abayoyo. It's also about 2 men. The first one is a warrior, a proud, strong warrior with armour and a sword. And he's a very serious man. He's serious about being a serious man. He is serious about being serious about being a serious man. He's really good at what he does. I'm serious. And the other man is a fool. And he is considerably less serious. In fact, you could go so far as to say that the fool is ridiculous. He likes trying new things, like eating gherkins with Nutella, or knitting with his feet. And the fool particularly loves to play the ukulele. He skips around the town, writing songs for people on the fly on the ukulele. You have a nice coat, and it's Sunday. He's not very good. In fact, thank you. You'll keep working on it. The people of the village find the fool incredibly annoying. And the final straw comes on the day of the warrior's wedding. It's the day when he's going to prove that he's a man in more respects than just fighting. And he's at the altar, about to make his vows to his bride, when the fool jumps from behind the altar in front of the entire congregation, and I can't go into details, but he composed a song for the bride about how he thought she'd be very good at her matrimonial duties. The warrior was not impressed. He grabbed the fool by the back of the neck, dragged him down the aisle, and threw him out onto the street. He said, "You are a disgrace. Go be a shepherd. You can come back once a week to this town, but when you do, you better not bring that ukulele, or I will stick it where the moon don't shine." And he slammed the doors of the church. That night, there was a celebration. Not because the fool was gone, though the fool was gone. And normally, the fool was something of a party cat. He really brought life to the party. But he wasn't needed tonight, because the warrior was popular, and everybody was dancing and singing. There was even an old man telling stories. He had a fire in front of him, and all the children were gathered round. Behind him, the sky was clear and black with a great full moon. And the old man was telling a story that his grandfather had told him. The story of Abayoyo the Giant. Yes, children. Yes, a giant. A very cruel and powerful giant who returns every 500 years to eat all the children. At this point, the sky went black. The children applauded, amazed at the theatrics of this show. But then, in the firelight, they saw the old man's face drop as he turned. The moon had been eclipsed by a great hand coming over the hill, which was followed by another great hand, and then the hulking form of the giant as he began to thunder his way towards the town. The children scattered in all directions as the giant reached the forest and tore up a tree from its roots. He began battering his way through. The women began screaming, gathering up the children and getting them to a safe place. As the giant reached a field of horses, he plucked up a horse and tore it in half with his teeth, spreading gore across the fields. The men began to cry. They called for the warrior, who came out of his matrimonial bed, still wearing his armour. His part of why she liked him in the first place. And he was carrying his sword, and he stood, and he faced his foe. Oh. Now sometimes, it doesn't matter how good you are at something. The giant, the warrior, was the best warrior. And he was not a coward. But when he saw that foe, he realized that there is nothing that one man with a sword can do against that. So he held his sword in the air, and as a signal to everybody around him, he dropped it to the ground. The men who'd stayed behind ran. The warrior himself turned, picked up a child, and was gone. Meanwhile, in the sheep fields on the edge of town, the fool was playing a concert for the sheep. Tough crowd. And as he was doing so, he saw a horse flying past, half a horse, flying past him and smash into the side of a building. Because I enjoy the irony, we'll say that building was Tesco. And he stared in confusion at the village, and he could see all the people running. And he couldn't think, come on, my music's not that bad, right? And then he turned and, oh, the giant was still thundering his way towards the town. And as the fool looked back, he could see that those who were carrying the children couldn't keep up. He had to do something. Hey! Hey, you giant! No response. The giant just kept on running. And then he remembered, when he was a child, an old man had told him a story about a giant. Abba Yo-Yo the giant. Yes, he's standing right there. And so the fool took up his ukulele. Abba Yo-Yo, how did you grow so? Abba Yo-Yo, I feel so low. And the giant, he'd never heard music before. He'd definitely never heard a song about himself. The fool was whisked up hundreds of feet into the air, and he was more than a little nervous. Abba Yo-Yo, how did you grow so? Abba Yo-Yo. And the giant, as the fool sped up his playing, began to dance. Abba Yo-Yo, Abba Yo-Yo. The fool looked down, and he could see the giant's feet moving around below him as he was tossed from side to side. Let's just say it was lucky he was wearing brown trousers. He began to play a little faster. Abba Yo-Yo, how did you grow so? Abba Yo-Yo. And the giant began to dance faster, and the fool noticed that the giant's footwork wasn't that great. And he had an idea. He played faster still. Abba Yo-Yo, how did you grow so? And faster. Abba Yo-Yo, how did you grow so? Abba Yo-Yo, and faster. Abba Yo-Yo, how did you grow so? Abba Yo-Yo, and faster. Abba Yo-Yo, how did you grow so? Abba Yo-Yo, until the giant fell to the ground with a crash. Those of you who are of a sensitive disposition should look away, because the giant just cracked his head on a rock. It's not nice. And the fool climbed out of the giant's hand and breathed the night air. Now, I told you that this story was about Abba Yo-Yo the giant. You're right. Not a giant. Not just a giant. And not just a fool and a warrior either. 3 years ago, I left university and I became a comedian. And I was determined that I was going to be the best at what I did. And I worked really hard at it, but sometimes it doesn't matter how good you get at something. You're going to meet a giant that you just can't beat that way. But if you're wise enough to be a little bit of a fool, to jump in and try something new, something possibly stupid, then that's how you're going to learn. And that's why I'm here today, having a crack at being a storyteller. And at the end of this story, the fool walks back to town, his ukulele in his hand, a small crowd of sheep following close behind. And the warrior walks up to him with his head bowed. He sees his sword lying on the ground. He looks up to the fool and he says, hey, I used to play the ukulele. Can you help me remember how?